I'm already here, so let's go. Roger, hey. Did you ever develop a strategy over the years? Because so much of what you do, I imagine, depended on personal relationships. I mean, it's not enough just to go to places and find things. I imagine a lot of it had to do with massaging people and striking a balance between getting what you want but being authentic. Did you develop any kind of strategy or where you had to deal with that kind of distance between pushing against people that were probably hesitant to give you what you so badly needed, and keeping things, friendly?
That's an interesting question, but I try to be respectful of the people who have things that I want or to have access to. But because most of the big items would be found in university settings, so there you just follow the rules and routine. And the other ones where I've come across large groupings or I've met people and then I find out that someone has it, it's mostly dumb luck. I mean, I have to be in the circle and know these people, or if I hear something, I seek them out. But mostly it's just luck. It's like getting that call from a person that says he got this material. And that sort of thing has happened several times. Once I had a guy who had a bunch of watercolors and he said, what am I going to do with them? And this is at the time when Hokie was buying watercolors for the Henry Miller Art Museum in Japan. Now, that was just luck because I just happened to see him and I just happened to know that they were actively buying watercolors for the museum. So I think it's probably, other than being respectful of those individuals, it's just a matter of dumb luck for me in securing these outside deals.
Thank you all for the presentation. We've been discouraged from asking two questions at the same time, but I'm going to do that because I think the first one is fairly simple. The first is for Roger. I was just wondering if you could clarify a little bit the status with the Schnellock letters. Do we have the complete, at least in the actual manuscripts, the complete text now, and is it a question of getting a new edition out that contains all of them, or are we not there yet?
No,
that's question one.
There's 187 letters, so that could be 600, I don't know, 187. The library has all of them. If a person wanted to bring them out, you would first have to pay commission to the Miller family. You would have to also deal with New Directions because they currently have a volume of it out. It would be different if you included everything. It's a matter of someone who feels like they want to finance, a publisher to finance what would be a 2 or 3 volume edition of those letters. It could be done. It could easily be done.
Has New Directions had any interest in doing that since they brought out the first one?
I have no idea, but the way the first one was done was so lousy, I don't think they would. I can't imagine they'd have any interest in doing all of them. Right. But the library does have the whole complete collection.
That's fascinating.
And they're wonderful letters.
And my second question was for Arthur. Is that the picture you gave of Miller is there's a little bit of the rugged individualist in the kind of portrait you painted, and I'm wondering because later on in Air Conditioned Nightmare, actually he talks a lot about mutual aid. The IWW and more of an anarchist tradition of collective effort. And I'm wondering, how does that fit together, or does it not? I mean, is that something you've looked into, is whether there's a contradiction there?
I would talk about this in the context of his relationship to two people, Conrad Morkand and Roger Bloom. People in the room probably know about his relationship with Conrad Morkand, how he knew him from Paris and admired him because of his astrology, invited him to Big Sur. It turned out to be a disaster. He had to throw him out. Morkand was blackmailing him for money. And the conclusion that he drew from this is you can't help another person. But on the other hand, he was very helpful to people. particularly to a man named Roger Bloom, who was a multiple convicted felon who was serving multiple sentences for armed robbery, had been in and out of prisons most of his life. And he wrote to Miller from prison saying that he had started reading Miller's books, and Miller's books were transforming him, and he was expressing his gratitude. Well, based on that feedback from Roger Bloom, Miller made Roger Bloom a cause, and he enlisted Anais Nin and other people to advocate for the parole of Roger Bloom. He visited Roger Bloom in prison. Ultimately, the warden of the prison was hanging Miller's watercolors in his office. So he was reaching out, he was being compassionate, as he always was, and he was trying to help another person. Now, you can extrapolate that to what does it mean to be a neighbor? And where does the circle of neighborliness end? So it could be a widening circle, or it could be a narrow circle. But you could make the case that if the concept of neighborliness is a Christian doctrine and it extends to all of humanity, and Miller was a great admirer of Jesus, that yes, Miller would say we have to help each other accomplish a good life.
Thank you, gentlemen. That was absolutely wonderful. My question is for Wayne. You mentioned a sort of generational line of people that remember Miller from his peak and people that read him, and I was just wondering, have you noticed any interest in Miller in people under the age of 60 in Japan, and how that might compare to interest here?
Yeah, that is definitely true. There is a very strong generational line. When he died, in 1980, he pretty much moved out of the spotlight, so to speak, although Hokie has attempted to keep him there. Younger generation, not as much, very, very rare. I remember years ago I was teaching English in Tokyo, and one of my students was like, well, what else do we talk about? Like, what's your favorite book? And he said, he was probably about 25, 30 in that area, and he said, Tropic of Cancer. And I was blown away because I was like, whoa, Miller. But there are new translations, and so that it is accessible, but yeah, he has, I think that maybe the next bump in interest in him in Japan will be when Hokie Tokuda passes away. There'll be a lot of interest then, but other than that, we need another movie maybe, or something like that. A little different than Henry and June, but yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for your talk. I really appreciate it. And Arthur, I have a question. With Henry being called the happy rock or the happiest man alive, is that an innate within his personality and your thought, or through all his struggles and challenges that he's gone through in life, such as even to others like Hemingway or Kerouac that went through a downward spiral in life and he went through an upward spiral? Where do you think this stemmed from?
Question.
It is a good question. I think it's probably comes from the leap that he took when he left New York and went to Paris and was basically flying blind and literally living on the nickel and finding a way not to be in despair. And finding a way to transcend that situation and be happy to elevate himself. And in order to do that, he had to find another space in his consciousness and live from that. So I think he worked on it, and he had been suffering a lot to get to the point where he took that leap.
Thank you.
Okay, great. Fantastic talk.